For the first half of the movie of Jungle Cruise, I very much enjoyed it. The chemistry between the leading characters felt genuine. I loved the adult humor and even the corny jokes. And my god, Veronica Falcon as Trader Sam. Genius. Pure genius. Ever since Queen of the South, I have fallen in love with this woman. However, when reaching the second half of the movie, I started spacing out, mainly because the final confrontation is very predictable, partly due to the antagonist. The trope with the Nazi antagonist has been done plenty of times, and it just felt unnecessary. Other than that, the movie was perfectly fine, and if you see my other videos, don't worry, I'm not going to reconstruct the whole film. The only thing I feel the need to change at all is the antagonist and just bits and pieces here and there. With all that being said, let's begin. Lily sneaks upstairs while her brother distracts the board. Just as she finds what she's been looking for, a Spanish gentleman enters the room looking for the same elusive arrowhead. A chase ensues and Lily makes a death-defying getaway, much to the Spaniard's dismay. Furious, the Spaniard threatens to withdraw his donation if he's not given the name of the woman that took the arrowhead. All I can say for this change without spoiling anything is just keep watching the video. After arriving in the Amazon, Lily and her brother have a few setbacks, mainly due to being kidnapped, but the siblings and their skipper finally set sail, unaware that they're being watched. Not long into their trip, Lily and Frank argue about which way to go, but just as Lily has won the argument, Frank spots the Spaniard's ship. He increases their speed, but to their shock, the Spaniard opens fire on them. Frank ducks for cover near a bank, but the Spaniard follows, but the low-hanging tree branches makes it hard for the Spaniard's ship to navigate through and resorts to using dynamite. The misfit crew doesn't know how much longer they can hold out, but it's the Spaniard's ship that gives out first. The rotor becomes jammed with a variety of plants that grows in the waters of the Amazon River. With them stuck, Frank makes for a hasty getaway. As night falls, the Spaniard and his crew have no choice but to wait till morning to fix the rotor. While they settle in, the damage made by the dynamite creates a stream that makes its way through the jungle floor into crevices that eventually makes its way into a cave that awakens its forgotten victims. Again, when it comes to the identity of the Spaniard, you're just gonna have to wait. As for changing when this chase occurs, I did that so it would make the awakening of Aguirre and his men more natural and create more suspense to know their identity and their backstory. Because truthfully, it didn't really make too much sense how anyone knew what happened to Aguirre and his men, let alone where to find them, because it was Frank that did that to them, and I don't think he would have told anyone. I suppose he could have told people just to scare them away from that area, but still, it didn't really make too much sense. After discovering Frank to be an immortal, he tells Lily his story and his connection to their attackers. He tells how he and Aguirre grew up like brothers, but Aguirre's only child was dying. Against his wife's wishes, he set sail for the Tears of the Moon. But his quest, as noble as it may have been, was changing him. When it appeared to be too late for all of them, they were saved. The rest that they all desperately needed seemed to have restored Aguirre back to his old self, much to the relief of Frank. However, being so close and not being allowed any further, despite his pleas, pushed him over the edge. But not all his men agreed with him. Frank and a few others fought off Aguirre and his men, but there were too many and they were all slaughtered. Just as Frank was breathing his last breath, the curse was completed and he found himself spared. However, Aguirre's rage only grew since he could no longer return home, and after decades of war, Frank did the only thing he could think to do to end the madness. It was only supposed to be temporary until he could figure out a way to break their curse, but had he known what would have become of them, he would have never done it. Let me start off by saying that the music during this scene was killer. However, my biggest issue with this scene was Frank's lack of empathy when he learns what happened to his former comrades. And if you watch the movie, you notice the change that I added in the retelling of their story. As McGregor and Trader Sam row down the Amazon River, they are surprised by the Spaniard. Trader Sam makes for a hasty getaway, leaving McGregor, but to his surprise, the Spaniard is very accommodating. The Spaniard doesn't tell McGregor everything, but he does assure them that while his methods may be excessive, he truly has no intention of harming him or his sister, and explains that he was shooting for the boat. Worried about his sister, McGregor caves in. Meanwhile, Lily and Frank witnesses the Tears of the Moon with their own eyes, but don't realize how little time they have. As they climb up the tree, Aguirre and his men attack. Frank holds them off, urging Lily to get the petals, but Aguirre goes after her. Frank watches in horror as Aguirre captures Lily. But to everyone's shock, the Spaniard shoots at Aguirre, releasing Lily from his grasp. The Spaniard goes after Aguirre as McGregor and the Spaniard's men assist Frank. Lily picks the last petal and throws it to Frank as Aguirre pins her down. However, the Spaniard calls out a name that leaves Aguirre stunned. Finally, the Spaniard reveals all. "My name is Miguel, and I am your descendant. Impossible. I only had one child, and she couldn't have survived." "You're right. She didn't live long after your departure, but what you didn't know and what your wife didn't know was that she was pregnant with your second child, who was named after you. This is a letter that Anna wrote to you on her deathbed. It was passed down unopened. I came here searching for some remnants of you in hopes of bringing peace to our family. I beg you, let the woman go and read the letter." Aguirre is overwhelmed by all he has heard and it becomes too much for him. His rage overtakes him, and as he strikes to end Lily's life, Miguel tackles him and the two plummet into the water. Aguirre attempts to drown Miguel, but Frank shows him the pedo and have all of Aguirre's anger focused on him. Seeing that nothing will ever truly subside Aguirre's rage, Frank does the only thing he can think to do, but this time he'll share the sentence with his former comrades. However, Lily breaks Frank's curse and Miguel gives Frank the letter, feeling that he is entitled to it as well. With the danger over with, they all make their way back to port on Miguel's ship and respectfully go their separate ways. And that is all she wrote. I know this was quick, but like I said earlier, for the most part, this was a solid film except for the antagonist. Despite those few hiccups in the film, it is refreshing to watch a more or less original movie instead of a reboot. Thanks for watching till the end. Hope you enjoyed the video, and like and subscribe.